Your dad said it, your mom said it, your uncle at Thanksgiving who still brags about buying his house in 1987 for 60 grand definitely said it. Buy a house as soon as you can. Go to college. Get a good job. You'll be fine. Always pay cash for everything. Put your money in savings. Credit cards are the devil. A new car is a reward you've earned. And you nodded. You nodded because they're your parents and they love you and they fed you and they seemed like they had it figured out. And look, maybe they did. For their world. For their economy. For their time. But here's the uncomfortable part that nobody at the dinner table wants to hear. Their world doesn't exist anymore. And the advice they gave you, with the best of intentions, with genuine love in their hearts, is actively costing you money. In some cases, it's costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. And I know that stings, I know it does, but stick with me here. Because by the end of this, you're going to see the math. And the math doesn't care about anyone's feelings. The name's Frank. And frankly, your parents' best advice might be your biggest financial mistake. If you're the kind of person who'd rather make money decisions based on data instead of guilt trips at Thanksgiving, hit subscribe, and if this video keeps you from blindly following advice that's 3 decades past its expiration date, a thumbs up would be nice. So let me be clear about something before we get into this. I'm not here to trash your parents. I'm not. Your parents grew up in a different economic reality, and the advice they gave you was genuinely good advice for 1985, or 1992, or even 2002. The problem isn't that they were wrong. The problem is that the world changed and the advice didn't, and nobody sent out a memo. Think about it like this. If your grandparents told your parents to invest in a good horse, because that's how you get around, that would have been fantastic advice in 1910. Terrible advice in 1960. The advice didn't get dumber. The world just moved. And that's exactly what happened with money. The rules changed. The costs changed. The entire game changed. But the advice at the kitchen table, that stayed frozen in time. So let's go through the big ones, piece by piece, and I'll show you what actually holds up and what's quietly draining your bank account. Number 1, buy a house as soon as you can. Oh, this is the big one. This is the sacred cow. You can't even question this one without someone looking at you like you just insulted their mother. And honestly, on the surface, it makes sense. Your parents bought a house, it went up in value, they built equity, they retired with a paid-off home. Beautiful story, truly. But here's where it falls apart. When your parents bought their first house, the median home price in the United States was roughly 3 times the median household income. That's according to Census Bureau data, 3 times. So if a household was making 40 grand, they were looking at a $120,000 house. Tight, but doable. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis tracks this ratio. And as of recent data, the median home price is now over 5 times the median household income. In some cities, we're talking 7, 8, even 10 times. Let that sink in for a second. The advice stayed the same. Buy a house. But the math behind it doubled. Your parents aren't wrong that home ownership can build wealth. They're wrong that it's automatically the right move for everyone right now, at these prices, with these interest rates. And here's the part that really gets me. When your parents bought their house, the average 30-year mortgage rate was, well, it fluctuated. But through much of the late 90s and 2000s, rates were between 6 and 8%. Sounds high, right? But here's the thing. They were buying a house that cost $120 grand. The total interest paid over 30 years on a $120,000 mortgage at 7% is roughly $167,000. That's painful, but manageable. Now run the same math today. A $350,000 house, which is roughly the national median, at a 7% rate. You're looking at paying over $480,000 in interest alone over 30 years. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that wages have not kept pace with this increase, not even close. Your parents' house cost them maybe $290,000 total over 30 years. Yours will cost you over $800,000 for a house that might not even be as nice. And yet the advice is still buy as soon as you can. Really? Buy as soon as you can so you can be house poor for the next decade? So you can dump your entire emergency fund into a down payment and then pray nothing breaks? Because according to a Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies report, it's roughly a third of homeowners are considered cost-burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. A third. Look, buying a house can still be a great move. But buy as soon as you can is not the same as buy when the math actually makes sense for your situation. Your parents didn't need to make that distinction because in their era, the math almost always worked. In yours, it doesn't, not automatically. Number 2, go to college, Get a degree, you'll be fine. This one hurts because it comes from such a real place. Your parents saw what a degree did for their generation. A college degree in the 1980s was like a cheat code. The unemployment rate for college graduates was consistently under 3%, and the wage premium, that's the extra money you make compared to someone without a degree, was massive and growing. The National Center for Education Statistics tracks the average cost of a 4-year degree over time. In 1980, the average annual tuition at a public 4-year university was about $2,400. Adjusted for inflation, that's roughly $8,000 in today's dollars. The current average, according to the College Board, we're looking at over $22,000 per year for in-state public universities. When you include room and board, that's a nearly threefold increase in real, inflation-adjusted terms. So your parents are telling you just go to college, as if it still costs what it cost them. It doesn't. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York has reported that total student loan debt in the U.S. has surpassed $1.7 trillion. Trillion. With a T, the average borrower is walking out with somewhere around $30,000 in debt, and that's the average. Plenty of people are carrying $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 or more. And here's where it gets really interesting. The wage premium for a bachelor's degree is still real. College graduates do earn more on average. The Georgetown University Center on Education and the Workforce has data showing that over a lifetime, a bachelor's degree holder earns about 84% more than someone with just a high school diploma. Sounds great, right? But that's an average. And averages hide a lot of sins. That number gets dragged up by engineers, computer scientists, finance majors, and nurses. If you graduated with a degree in let's say general studies, or certain liberal arts fields. And I'm not knocking those fields, they have value. But the wage premium for some of those degrees barely covers the cost of the degree itself. The Georgetown data breaks it down by major, and the difference between the highest earning and lowest earning bachelor's degrees is staggering. We're talking a gap of over $3 million in lifetime earnings between the top and bottom. So, go to college isn't bad advice. Go to college regardless of the cost, regardless of the major, regardless of whether there's a cheaper path to the same career. That's the advice that's ruining people. And that's what your parents are often saying without realizing it. Because in their day, it didn't matter as much. The degree itself was the signal. Now, what you study and what you pay for it matters enormously. Number 3, save your money, put it in the bank. This is the one that makes me want to flip a table. Not because saving is bad. Saving is great. You should absolutely have an emergency fund. But when your parents say, put your money in savings, they're picturing a world where savings accounts actually paid you something. In the early 1980s, savings account interest rates were north of 10%. 10%. According to the FDIC's historical data, on national rates, you could literally park your money in a savings account and watch it grow at a meaningful rate. Your money was working for you. Fast forward to, well, the last 15-ish years. The average savings account rate has hovered around 0.01 to 0.5% for most of that time. It's come up recently, sure, but for over a decade, keeping your money in a savings account was essentially losing purchasing power every single year, because inflation was running at 2 to 3%, while your savings earned practically nothing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks the Consumer Price Index, and here's the simple version. If you put $10,000 in a savings account earning 0.05% in 2010, and inflation averaged about 2.5% per year, by 2020, your $10,000 would have the purchasing power of roughly $7,800. You didn't lose money on paper, but you lost money in reality. Your parents' advice to save was actually costing you wealth. Now compare that to investing. The S&P 500, according to historical data tracked by NYU's Stern School of Business, has averaged roughly 10% annual returns over the long term, or about 7% after inflation. That same $10,000 invested in a broad market index fund in 2010 would have grown to roughly $25,000 or more by 2020. The difference between saving and investing over decades isn't small. It's the difference between retiring comfortably and working until you're 75. And I get it. Your parents saw people lose money in the stock market. The dot-com crash, 2008, they got scared. Fear is a powerful teacher, but here's what the data actually shows. A Vanguard study on long-term market returns found that if you stayed invested in a diversified portfolio for any 20-year period in modern market history, you came out positive every single time. Even if you invested right before a crash, time in the market beats timing the market. That's not a motivational poster. That's math. Your parents' advice to keep everything in savings was driven by fear. And fear, it's a terrible financial advisor. Number 4, credit cards are dangerous. Always pay cash. Okay, I'll give your parents a half point on this one. Credit card debt is genuinely brutal. The average credit card APR right now is over 20%, according to the Federal Reserve's data on consumer credit. 20%, if you carry a balance, that's a financial wood chipper. But here's the thing. Your parents saying avoid credit cards entirely is like saying avoid fire entirely. Fire can burn your house down. It can also cook your food and keep you warm. The tool isn't the problem. How you use it is. Paying cash for everything means you're not building a credit history. And in the modern economy, your credit score affects everything. The interest rate on your mortgage, whether you can rent an apartment. In some states, it even affects your car insurance premiums. A study from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that people with thin credit files, meaning not enough credit history, often pay significantly more for financial products than people with established good credit. So your parents' advice to avoid credit cards to stay safe actually makes everything more expensive in the long run if you never build credit. The smart play, and this is what nobody taught most of us, is to use a credit card for regular purchases. Pay it off in full every single month and let your credit score climb. You get the fraud protection, you get the rewards, you get the credit history, and you pay zero interest. That's not dangerous. That's strategic. But use credit cards strategically and always pay them off in full. Doesn't fit on a bumper sticker, as well as credit cards are the devil. So here we are. Number 5. A reliable new car is a good investment. Oh boy, this one is like my personal favorite because of how wrong it is on every level. And I say that with love. Your parents probably said something like, buy new, take care of it, and you'll save money in the long run because you won't be dealing with someone else's problems. And in the 1980s and 90s, there was some logic there. Used cars were less reliable. Information about vehicle history was harder to find. Lemon laws were weaker. The quality gap between new and used was bigger. But here's the thing. According to Edmunds, the average new car now costs over $48,000. $48,000 for a car. That depreciates roughly 20% in the first year alone. That means your good investment loses somewhere around $9,000 to $10,000 in value the moment you drive it off the lot in the first year. The data from IC Cars and similar automotive research firms shows that modern used cars, especially those 2 to 3 years old, have dramatically improved in reliability compared to decades ago. Cars today are engineered to last well over 200,000 miles. A 3-year-old car with 30,000 miles on it has barely broken in, and you're buying it at 20 to 30% less than what the original owner paid. And here's where it really stings. That $9,000 or $10,000 first-year depreciation loss, if you invested that money instead, at an average market return of, say, 7% after inflation over 30 years, that single decision would be worth roughly $76,000. One car purchase decision, $76,000 in opportunity cost. And most people buy multiple new cars in their lifetime. Do the math. I'll wait. Your parents' reliable new car advice isn't just outdated. It's one of the most expensive pieces of financial advice still circulating at kitchen tables across America. Number 6. Don't talk about money. It's rude. This is the silent killer, the sneaky one, the one that doesn't show up on any spreadsheet but costs people everything. Your parents grew up in an era where talking about salaries was considered vulgar, because discussing investments was something rich people did. Admitting you were struggling was shameful. So they taught you, directly or indirectly, to just not talk about it. Keep it private. Figure it out on your own. And the result? According to a National Financial Educators Council survey, the average American estimated that their lack of financial knowledge cost them over $1,800 in a single year. That's self-reported. The actual number is almost certainly higher because, well, if you don't know what you don't know, you can't estimate what it's costing you. The taboo around money conversations means people don't negotiate salaries. A study from Salary.com found that only about 37% of workers always negotiate their salary, and those who do negotiate earn significantly more over their careers. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. But if your parents taught you that talking about money is rude, you're probably not asking your coworkers what they make, not researching salary ranges, not pushing back when you get lowballed. The silence around money also means people make major financial decisions in isolation. They buy houses without understanding the true total cost. They take on student loans without running the math on repayment. They invest based on tips from a coworker instead of actual research. Because talking about money is rude, remember? Here's what I'll say about this one. Every financially successful person I've ever seen, read about, or studied has one thing in common. They talk about money. They ask questions. They compare notes. They're not embarrassed by the subject. The taboo your parents handed you isn't protecting your dignity. It's protecting your ignorance. And ignorance is expensive. Now look, I told you at the beginning I wasn't here to trash your parents. And I meant it. Here's the part where I get, uncomfortably honest for a second. Your parents gave you the best advice they had. They gave you advice that worked for them, in their economy, with their costs, with their opportunities. The problem isn't that they were dumb. The problem is that the economic landscape shifted dramatically and nobody updated the playbook. Housing prices tripled relative to income. Education costs exploded. Savings accounts stopped paying meaningful interest. The job market transformed. And through all of that, the kitchen table advice stayed exactly the same. It's like inheriting a roadmap from 1990 and trying to use it to navigate a city that's been completely rebuilt. The map was perfect when it was drawn. It's just not where the roads are anymore. So what do you actually do with this information? Because I don't want you walking away from this just feeling bad. That's not the point. Here's what actually works now. On housing. Run the numbers for your situation. Use a rent versus buy calculator. Factor in maintenance, taxes, insurance, opportunity cost of your down payment. If buying makes sense, buy. If renting and investing the difference makes more sense, do that. The right answer isn't always buy or never buy. The right answer is do the math and be honest about what it tells you. On education, think about return on investment before you sign for loans. Community college for the first 2 years saves a fortune. With virtually no difference in outcomes, trade schools and certification programs lead to 6-figure careers without 6-figure debt. If you do go the 4-year university route, pick a school and a major with your eyes open about what it costs and what it leads to. On saving and investing, yes, keep an emergency fund and a high-yield savings account. 3 to 6 months of expenses. Beyond that, your money needs to be invested. A simple, low-cost index fund, something that tracks the total stock market or the S&P 500, has historically been one of the most reliable wealth-building tools available to regular people. Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, they all offer these with expense ratios so low they are practically free. You don't need to be a stock picker. You just need to start. On credit. Get a credit card. Use it for groceries and gas. Set up auto pay for the full balance. Never carry a balance. Watch your credit score climb. That's it. That's the whole strategy. On cars. Buy used. 2 to 3 years old. Low miles. Let someone else eat the depreciation. Invest the difference. Your future self will thank you. On talking about money. Start. Today. Ask a trusted friend what they make. Share what you make. Talk about your investments. Discuss your debt. It's awkward for about 5 minutes, and then it's the most valuable conversation you've ever had. Look, I know this is a lot, and I know some of you are sitting there feeling a weird mix of anger and guilt. Anger because this stuff should have been obvious, and guilt because your parents really were trying their best. Here's what I want you to take away from this. You're not behind because you're stupid. You're not behind because you're lazy. You're behind because you were given a playbook for a game that doesn't exist anymore. And the fact that you're here, listening to a grumpy guy break this down for you, means you're already doing something your parents' generation rarely did. You're questioning the advice. You're looking at the data. You're updating the map. Your parents loved you. Their advice came from that love. But love doesn't make advice accurate. Data does. And now you have the data. So the next time someone at Thanksgiving tells you that you're throwing money away on rent, or that you need to buy a new car because it's more reliable, or that credit cards are evil, or that you just need to save harder, you can smile, nod, and then go do what the numbers actually tell you to do. Because frankly, the most expensive advice in the world is free advice from someone who hasn't checked the math since 1994. You're not disrespecting your parents by thinking for yourself. You're honoring them by doing better than they could. And that's the whole point, isn't it? Every generation is supposed to do better. But you can't do better by following yesterday's directions. Update the map. Run your own numbers. And stop apologizing for being smarter about money than the people who raised you. They'd be proud of you. even if they'd never admit it at the dinner table.